if the coffee stinks like an onion or sweat, after you play Brazilian soccer, after you play 2 hours in soccer and you are really bad, you need some deodorant, you need to take a shower, this is what the coffee smells for me, this fermented coffee.
Welcome back to Coffee with April. My name is Patrick Rolfe, and this is a conversation with some amazing professionals and entrepreneurs in the coffee industry, sharing their perspective and experience. It's about integrity, quality, and the future. For the first time in a long time, we here at April are working with a Brazilian coffee, and we had the opportunity to sit down with its farmer, Bruno from Fazenda, Esperança. It was a really passionate discussion about the quality of the coffee that we're working with and also just farming life in general. So we're sitting in Copenhagen, and with me I have our partner farmer from Brazil, Bruno, which is pretty amazing that you take your time to come up here. It's really fun, and it's really rare that you have the opportunity to sit down with the farmer you're buying from in your own office in the city you're roasting, right? So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
In the cup, we're gonna jump straight into it because the reality is this: that at April, we've been buying very few Brazilian coffees since we started. Like, we've been around for 2 years. Last season, we didn't even have Brazilian coffees. A big part of that is because it's been difficult to find a quality that is correlating with what we're looking for, right? So having a Brazilian coffee now for almost the first time in April is a pretty amazing experience. And for you guys listening, the only reason we have that is because of Bruno. So Bruno is basically helping us redefine what Brazilian coffee can be. And the coffee that we're actually sitting here drinking together now, which arrived in the roastery yesterday, and it's going to be out for you guys as well, is a big part of that. It's an absolutely amazing cup of coffee, right? We have a lot of yellow fruit in the cup. We have a lot of florals in the cup. It's a fully natural, but it's incredibly clean, which is all three things that is very rare to find in a Brazilian coffee in general these days, I think. So we're pretty amazing to be able to have it. Should we start by just talking a bit about the coffee itself?
Yes. So, Icatu, it's cultivar, it's not variety. Was bred in Brazil in a agronomic institute back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and the problem was the rust. So they were trying to find some coffee that could be resistant to rust, not immune, but resistant to rust. And they start to putting together, and they notice that the Robusta doesn't have the rust. So they start, but it was very hard because Robusta is 22 chromosomes, in Arabic is 44. So what the Dr. Coffee, Dr. Alcides, that it's one of the most important guy in the cultivars in Brazil, he doubled the chromosome on the Robusta. So he put two together, so 40, 40, 44, he breed them, and after that he's starting to put them together. And my father hates pesticide. And so when they thought that they have a coffee that doesn't need to spray or doesn't need to use the pesticide, he said, this is the coffee that I want. And back in 1980, my uncle was in the Brazilian Institute of Coffee, the IBC, and they gave to him from Campinas, the Agronomic Institute gave to him a couple kilos of seeds from the Icatu. And my father was excited that they planted Icatu. The problem is, in these 2 kilos, I think that's 2,000 samples, we had probably 600 different trees. You have trees that's very small, pink, it's because they are starting to building the thing.
Yeah.
And we harvest that thing, it was very hard because there was so many different coffees that we don't have the cup. So back in, when I moved back to the farm in 85, they released the new Icatu. And in 92, I went to the farm that the guy was having this coffee, was 7 years old plantation, guy from IBC, the first one that has the real Icatu that we're drinking now. And I harvest myself, with my employees, the the yellow seeds. And it's funny because he doesn't have one tree red.
Yeah.
And we did only the yellow. He doesn't have red. And now we have probably 7% red Icatu in the plantation. Now what we are doing, because it's not that much, I'm harvest the red separate of the yellow.
Is there a big taste difference between the red and the yellow?
The sweetness is different.
Okay.
When you try the sweets in the trees, for me it's, I don't know what type of sweetness is, but the yellow, the attack is hard, but it's fast, going fast.
Yeah.
And the red is not that intense, but it's more continuous. And the Icatu, I really like the yellow much better than the red. It's a big difference in sweetness. And so I grow this coffee, and my father, if you see pictures, all the pictures that I have, all the pictures that he has is behind these Icatu trees. First, they are beautiful. They are like 5 meters high. Looks like that has a lot of production. It's not. It's a coffee that produces, like if I have in my Catuai with 2 meters high, 40 bags per hectare, the Icatu are going to have 15 to 20.
Yeah.
So it's a big trees, but maybe it's why the coffee is more. So you have more sugar. The plant can give more sugar to less
more
beans.
nutrition to the beans. Yeah,
to the beans. And so this particular coffee is the highest altitude at the farm. The one that we are drinking is 1,230 meters high, the Icatu. The farm, it's not big difference because the lowest is 1,170 and the highest 1,230. So it's 6 meters only the difference. And we planted another one, 1,170. And the deal is the coffee is really different, outstanding. The beans are small, so also it's not only the productive, but also the beans are small. So nobody wants to grow that Icatu. And I have a neighbor that I processed his Icatu. He's about 1 kilometer from me, the same altitude, totally different. Big beans, it's another Icatu.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know which one is it, but the big beans doesn't taste the same that the small beans in terms of.
It's a big difference, and I know it's something that a lot of roasters or baristas out there are not really thinking about as well. That every varietal has about 100, 200 strains of it, right? So
exactly.
Let's say you talk about Geisha, you talk about Icatu, or you talk about Bourbon or whatever. All the Bourbons are different, all the Geishas are different because there's so many different strains. So if you try all of these. I was just in Costa Rica now, and then we tried what was referred to as his kind of geisha garden, where he has 50 different strains of geisha. They're like different coffees, right? You wouldn't believe it's all the same varietal. But with this coffee, you've been through a really interesting processing with this coffee. Let's go through that.
This was the mistakes that you learn from the mistake. Not the mistake. We are harvesting coffee, and usually in in Cerrado region, what you have the advantage from other regions, had to have a very dry harvest season. So we had 1 year in my town that was 8% the humidity. So if you compare the humidity in Sahara, that's 13, we are 5 degrees below the Sahara. Usually we have the humidity between 20 and 30, which is very good for drying the coffee. So you have less risk of fermentation. This is why maybe the naturals from Cerrado can be more clean than the others. The humidity is low, temperature is low, so you have less fungus that, you have different fungus that can change. The same fungus in Cerrado and the same fungus in Caparral can change completely the cup. Because Caparral, the humidity will be 40, 50%. So the same fungus there will change different. The growing more fast, I don't know exactly what is it, but so the rain was coming. And so I don't want my coffee that is with 16% the humidity in the patio get the rain. It will be ruining the coffee most of the time. So even if you cover, we decide to do different. We decide to take the risk and put this coffee in a bag and put inside the warehouse until the rain is gone. So, but the rain is starting rain 2 days, and after another 4 days they are expecting another one. So we wait for the second one. The patio was full, and the coffee stayed in the warehouse for about 30 days, 30 to 35 days. So after 30 to 35 days, we put in the patio again, 1 or 2 days, and it's ready. And we don't need even. This coffee was milled 1 day after we put in the warehouse. So we didn't rest. We don't need to rest. It's already resting we spent 45 days to dry this coffee. So I was resting with 16% humidity. And I think that when I brought to the patio again, was completely even. The moisture, all the beans were about, because they keep exchanging. And so we actually, it's something that we're going to repeat with rain or without rain.
That's so crazy because for those of you that don't know, I mean, after processing, a coffee would normally rest for 1 to 2 months before the hulling. Yeah.
But the idea, it's exactly, probably first, the dryers. When you dry the dryers, it's not even the dry. So even if you taste the moisture, 11%, maybe one bean has 15, another one has 7. So in 2 months, when the coffee has still parchment or the husk, they didn't hull it yet, they exchange the moisture. After you remove, the coffee is dead. You kill the embryo, you kill everything, and in that moment, it's not changed anymore. After you hull it, the green beans doesn't exchange the moisture between them. And the reason that we let the coffee 2 months in the silo or in the bags, it's exactly to uniformize, to have the uniform, the moisture between all the grain. But it's already did this in 45 days. And this is why I think that the concrete is better to dry than anything else, even the African beds. Because when you put the coffee in the volcano, they start, the way that the volcano does, it's the moisture going up, and after, if I can dry the coffee in 48 hours, from the moment that if I wash it, for instance, I dry it for a couple of hours, put in the dryer, and 30 hours later, it's already ready to do whatever you want. We do different. I don't use the dryer since 2006. I was not even there, but my nephew, that was when we stopped using the dryers. And now we are not planning to use the dryer, at least for this type of coffee. Actually, when I increase my production, they mature the bad beans or the coffees that because you don't produce, in my place, I'm having like 55 to 6% the great quality. So there's another 40% I can dry in a dryer, but I'm not drying in a dryer my wood coffees anymore.
What is the big, because different types of drying is something that it's pretty interesting, because the more I travel to farms and regions now, the more I hear farmers like you swearing that patios is better than a raised bed. And when I go around and I taste coffees all over the world, and we talk about these kind of different styles of the farming, more and more I start agreeing with you guys, because the coffees that I'm trying that is dried on patios are cleaner most of the times. They're more vibrant and they have a better acidity structure, I find. But it's interesting because if you go around talking with roasters around Europe, all of them are going to swear on raised beds.
Yeah, this is how I can call this. This is a sign of the times. It's somebody told that the concept is very nice, right? It's very clean, but take too long, and the coffee is not has the one that is in the top is not the same that one that's in the bottom.
It's not uniform.
Because you have, so the temperature is different. And I covered, you saw that half of my pile was covered, the African beds, and half was not. We are trying to do the difference between, did they change? Yeah. I thought that maybe if it's covered, you have more uniform heat inside. Didn't change. Actually, we did one here. I can't swear that this is, but what I learned, I'm using, I was one of the first to use the African beds in Brazil. I started using this in 2000, before I moved to the United States. And we had the big one that was 3 meters. The idea has a lot of coffee. And so I'm trying to do different ones, and now you saw they rebuilt ones. It's smaller that I can do everything by hand. The good things in the African beds is you can select the immatures, because in the patio it's very hard to bend your knee. But in the patio, and I did my patio a little higher, so it's hard. It's easy to select the only reason. So what I'm doing now is, if some of the coffees I'm starting, like I select the coffee, put in the African beds, and after 2 or 3 days I bring to the concrete and I finish the concrete. So the first 2 days it's okay. This is low. But it's better when concrete. I was telling you that now we have this kind of net that's the same that used, but it's Like the one that use in a can embeds, the roll is about 40% only closed. This one is 90% closed. And you can put in a concrete or you can put in a dirt patio, and the coffee will be clean and good things. No rocks.
That's so you don't have to do the concrete, right? So
no concrete anymore.
Okay. So it's a cheaper, more sustainable option than a patio.
It's about 16 to 20% the cost.
Okay.
And if you use tractors, what we don't use inside on the patio, they guarantee you 4 years. Yeah. They give you the guarantee of 4 years. So mine last year, we did. After we finished the harvest, we roll and put in the warehouse. So it will be forever. Yeah. No, but this 4 years it's enough. It's very easy. You take 1 day to do 5,000 meters. Don't only need to unroll and
that's amazing.
And cover the patio. It's very nice, man. It's something new.
Yeah.
That even the concrete, like my concrete, next year, instead of fix it, I'm gonna cover with the concrete. I'm gonna put this in the concrete too.
Oh, that's amazing. I think one of the, because we visited a farm back in November, right? And that's one of the interesting things with walking around on the farm with you, that you guys are really progressive, right? You're trying a lot of new things, which is really interesting. And I mean, we've known each other for is it 4 years now? We've been in Amsterdam, right? Is it 5 years?
Yes, 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I think every time...
It's 4 years.
It's 4 years.
Yeah.
And every time we meet, there's always something new. There's always something interesting that you're testing, right? And I think I remember on the farm as well. You showed us how you guys are working with the tanks now that you put in water for fermentation. What are we doing there?
I want to do a fermented coffee, and I saw some like this carbonic maceration. The guy is using like a stainless steel, and actually it was not me. It was my son-in-law. This is another thing that's good because my father was. Passed away when we met, and he was 95. Yeah. And he still wants to do something new. And so now, he was accepting everything that I want to try. He support me. Now I have my son-in-law and my daughter that is doing the same. And my son-in-law decided to he wants to ferment the coffee with a tangerine. He always saw the tangerine and I said, this is never go down and I want to try. So this year we did this with tangerine. And the idea that we did in our tanks, with water, didn't work out. So this year we tried to do in that, we bought that barrels that they used to carry, it's a plastic barrel that they used to carry olive or mushrooms, and it's 200 liters and 140 liters. And the idea is we want to keep the temperature during the fermentation low. Because I don't like, if it's heating, like I picture that I showed you today, that video, it's something is gonna change. I don't want to overheat. So I want the normal temperature. So what we did is we put inside of this barrels, and we have a creek, as you saw at the farm, and we drop that barrels in the creek, lay down. So half of the barrel has water. Yeah. And when we opened the coffee 3 days later, 72 days later, the coffee was cold, it was never fermented. So I'm not sure what happened, but I can guess that was a slow fermentation because the temperature didn't go up. Sure. So the fungus and bacteria that was growing start to be less, that was not accelerated like if heat. And so it was a very slow fermentation for the 3 days. And after the 3 days, what we did, we put the coffee straight in the patio. Some we did in African beds and some in the patio. Patio was one point score, score higher than the African beds. So it's something easy to do. We have the creek. It's not something that everybody can do because that creek, it's very convenient.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know if you remember, but the creek is in the shade. Yep. The water is cold, but also in the shade. And I believe that I can put there each time, about 3,000 liters of coffee in 15 barrels with 200 liters inside of that creek. So it's okay. It will be 6 bags each time.
Yeah, well, that's pretty interesting because one of the things you need to factor in as well is cost of production in that sense, right? And in those kind of coffees, to be sustainable, to be able to actually sell, needs to also not be too expensive.
But it's less money. Do you know why? I harvest the coffee from the machine, as you saw, selecting harvest, right? The immatures that are coming, I'm not removing now. I'm removing in the end, in the dry mill. So what we did is we get that coffee directly from the plantation, put in the barrels and drop in the water. So during 3 days, we don't need to do nothing.
You don't touch it. Yeah, of course, you don't need to.
And after that, when I drop the coffee, so I gain space in the patio, right? When I drop the coffee, for some reason, it's gonna dry a little bit faster, maybe 1 or 2 days faster. So I gained these 3 days that I didn't keep mixing.
It's actually more efficient. Yeah.
Much more efficient. So the problem is the number of the barrels that I need to have. And I was thinking this year, maybe I should buy the one that the guys did, but it's gonna change. The way that I did is lay down. If I put them stand up, the water probably the temperature will be not the same. Because when it's laid down, once in a while the guy go there and roll that inside of the water. So you change and you keep the temperature exactly the same. So I already ordered one other. I have like about 2,000 liters now. I want to have another. So I can do each 2 days, each 3 days.
Yeah.
I can renew and this year we're gonna dry some washer too.
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna put the coffee, ferment 3 days, and wash without water. I did it this year because the popper use water. I don't have, but now this year I'm gonna use one Colombia one. Is the name? The Penagro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the Penagro without water to try. I think that will be interesting. See this coffee wash it.
I think that's what Alejo is using in Costa Rica as well. The same the popper.
The Penagro. It's the best.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm Brazilian. I'm sorry, Pinhalense, but
Yeah.
now the machine is
Yeah,
okay.
I mean less water as well, which is a good thing, right?
No water, it's
good
the
for
best.
everyone.
Yeah. You wash it. Icatu has a lot of muscilate. When I was telling you that the beans are smaller, but if you see the cherry is big. In other words, it have a lot of muscilate, but small beans, so you have much more sugar inside. I don't want to wash that sugar. That this is what you're tasting now.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I think we talked about this morning as well, where you and me have a pretty similar view on over fermented coffees, or the new trend of coffees that I'm not sure if it's politically correct of me to say that they're over fermented, but there's definitely a style of coffees now that is really just tasting like ferment, especially coming out of Brazil as well.
Do you know what I'm telling now, people? If I'm going to repeat this,
please
you can
do.
cut or not, but
Go for it.
if the coffee stinks like an onion or sweat, after you play Brazilian soccer, after you play 2 hours in soccer and you are really bad, you need some deodorant, you need to take a shower, this is what the coffee smell for me. This fermented coffee that I think that has difference in fermented and ferment. In Portuguese, you don't have this, but I think that ferment in English is bad, and fermented means that the coffee was fermented somehow. And but man, I'm not giving the name of the guys that did the Q class with me. They did the roasting class with me, and they have one coffee. Do you know what? Fuck, its name is fruit salad. Man, it's rotten fruit salad. It's stinking. The people are crazy. In Australia, you don't need to put this in the. But
I mean, this is a really important discussion because I totally agree with you in the sense that a lot of coffees are today sold for. I mean, you recently tasted a coffee. Again, we're not mentioning any names, but a mutual friend of us is working with a coffee as well that is very, very expensive, very, very expensive. But then you try it and you can't taste anything from the farm. You can't really taste the origin. You just taste this really, really, as you say, rotten or like really funky fruit salad. And those coffees are sold for
extremely
crazy prices, right? And then in the end of the day, they taste really crap. And would be almost a showcase of bad farming rather than good farming, right?
Yeah, the problem is the farmers, they are getting so much money for this shitty coffee that they keep doing. I showed you a picture today that the coffee was smoking outside, and you have the buyer for that. Yeah. Some coffee that was dried like 20 centimeters high because the guy has too much coffee, and I asked him for a coffee for me to represent him. He is my neighbor. He said, this year unfortunately you have too much coffee and I could not, my process was a crap, so I don't have the coffee. So he sent one sample to the Cup of Excellence and they played 12 in the Cup of Excellence. The coffee was extremely fruity. But the fruity is over ferment, as you can say. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but the best phrase is what my wife tell us. I was living in the United States in some Panama coffee that was extremely outstanding. Some geishas, when the geishas start. And we got one Huehuetenango and one geisha from Joe Pollock Stumptown. He gave to us. He was the roastmaster in Stumptown. And he bought this coffee in Cup of Excellence and he gave both to us. And we drink the geisha first. And we drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Deborah said, "Can we have a coffee today?" Because it was not really what we want in the coffee. So you don't have it's a fruity. It's a different thing. So, and I believe that maybe I'm wrong, but I think that this is gonna go back. You are taught that you are in the coffee 7 years. I'm a little older than you. I start. I remember I'm turning 60, and the first time that I cupped on coffee, I was 8 years old with my dad. Yeah. I still have my spoon that he gave to me there. And but I went to try all these different coffees, and I always have this weird problem when I moved to the United States back in 2001, 2002, because I remember one day that we're talking about the blueberry and blah, 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 and I have no idea what blueberry means. It's another thing that they need to change. Sure. So how I can, Brazil produced blueberries called mirtillo in south of Brazil. When I moved to the United States, we don't even have the mirtillo. So I have no idea what is that. And so I remember one friend of mine, Ariana, told me, "Oh, you need to have a muffin, the blueberry, and you can smell." Yeah, I could relate that with that Harar. But man, I don't know. You don't know this. I'm talking about 2002, and we were kids still. In 2003, and the Harar was completely disgusting for me. I came to clean coffee. My father, in Brazil, any coffee that has fruit was considered fermented. Even if it was sweet, it's good. And when I tried that thing, it was over fermented for me. And during 3 years, people tell, "Oh, this is the best coffee, the natural Sedamo that smell and tastes like tobacco." And you know what? I don't want tobacco in my coffee. It's personal. And from 2007 until I left, nobody was using Harar anymore. Stumptown was still using some Sedamo, but this has changed completely the idea of the coffee, and the washed was much more. So we had problems with Brazil. In that time I was selling washed coffees. I could not sell natural. Yeah. Nobody wants the natural for a period. And after that, man, after I moved to Brazil, suddenly the people start with crazy thing. Jacques Carneiro from Karma Coffee. He was in my place in 2006, and I have the Zika 2 with the same fruit that we are trying today. Maybe a little bit more intense. And he said, "Your coffee is fermented." I said, "Every coffee is fermented. It's dry and sugar is fermented." "No, but this is not taste good." And I remember he said, "This is your mouth. Maybe you have a rat in your mouth. This is beautiful coffee." So I moved to Brazil in 2010, and I was with Ryan Brown. No, I was with Kyle Glanville, cupping the coffee. And we have like about 10 lots in one side of the table, and one coffee in the back of on the other side of the table. And Jacques came in and said, "I want you to try that coffee for me." And I said, "I don't need it. I already smell it." And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "This is exactly the same that you cupped in my garage in 2006. So do you remember? I said, "Yeah, now you are thinking that's a good coffee, right?" So you changed. It was really good. It was fruity, but it was really good. Yeah. So what I'm saying is the change changed completely. And now these people in Brazil, they love the fruit because they have more money. Yeah. So it's much easier to make. You let the coffee ferment anyway. You don't need to select the beans.
I mean, it's an easier way to process coffee, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's easier, less attention to detail. Plus, most of the times you have a higher selling price as well. So,
and you don't need to do nothing. You didn't even to sort the coffee, the greens. Do you know why? The fruit is so intense that the green is not show up. But these coffees will fade faster than the others. So we had the coffee in December. And I had the problem with the guy that won Cup of Excellence in Brazil that bought one guy in London. Said, "Man, I got the coffee, was very nice, very fruit. When I had here, I have the peanut." Do you know why? This fruit goes. And if the fruit goes, what show up? The defect. The defect is not big enough to the taste of the fruit.
Yeah, sure.
But the fruit's gonna go down in a couple months. And so this is the coffee that it's a high price, but need to use it fast.
Yeah.
It's not the coffee that tastes more than 3 months, 4 months after you have it.
No, definitely. And I come back, I mean, with my coffees at April, the important thing is, I mean, we select to work with different farmers around the world because we have seen what they do and we believe in what they do taste-wise. And let's say I buy a coffee from you, it's very important for me that it tastes like a coffee from you, right? So with most of the coffees with these kind of over ferments or alternative processing, it's an interesting, yeah, we're going to talk about, we're drinking another coffee now, we're going to talk about that as well because that's on the subject of ferment. But just to wrap up, I mean, you want to taste the craftsmanship of that farmer, right? So if I cup 10 coffees from 10 different farmers, I want to be able to identify, okay, this cup is from this farmer because this is how they do it. When I cupped, let's say, the coffees in the World Championship in Brewers in Brazil last year, then, I mean, sure, they're expressive. You get, you know, the flavors are really intense, but you can't always tell what the coffee is from because you taste the process, not the craft. And it's the same with, I mean, we talk about roasting, and if, let's say, you talk about dark roast, it's the same thing there. Where is the coffee actually from, right? And which roastery is the coffee actually from? It's very important that you can taste the craft again. And the cup we're drinking now, because we have two coffees here, because I've just been in Costa Rica, and we've been talking about these experimental processing. So we have an anaerobic fermented coffee that Bruno is tasting for the first time, I believe. And the interesting thing with the anaerobic fermentation, what they do, at least at this mill in Costa Rica, because it's a large mill, and then they get coffee from different producers. And what they've done is that they identify a coffee, or a cherry more specifically, in a certain region in Costa Rica that has a very clear note of cinnamon. They depulp that coffee, they save the pulp, and then they bring in the pulp and they use the same pulp that they've frozen down to ferment with different coffees from different regions. So they do this in stainless steel hermetic tanks, so they control pressure, temperature, everything, right? And the pitch is that the pulp is so cinnamony in the character that it brings this character to the coffee, right? So
It's here.
Yeah.
Now that's cooling off the cinnamon. It's so intense.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
What do you think about this coffee?
Oh, it's
I mean,
delicious. You know, this is.
you like this, yeah?
Yeah, and this is the coffee that I can drink every day. It's
wow.
different than other fermented coffee that
Yeah.
even if you like, you don't want to drink second day again because it's too much. And this is perfect. Now I want to visit the farm because I want to know how he separate the mucilate.
Yep.
I know that it's a penag without water, but even I want to know how, you know, I want to see this process.
It's a really interesting, and what they do is that they, because these kind of coffees is a fairly new trend in Costa Rica, at least in like hermetic proper tanks, and it's still the same pulp. So this pulp is from like 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
Frozen down, and then they have a lot of it. So they just portion it out whenever we come, and they do these kind of really small. So the one lot here or one tank carries, let's see, carries 90 kilos of coffee. So they process 90 kilo of coffee at a time, and they can ferment it for up to 36 days.
750
Oh,
liters.
36 hours, sorry.
It's about 750 liters.
Yeah, and they vary between, you know, wash honey natural first, and then they do part of the processing is similar to really any kind of coffee, right? And then they put it in the tanks for additional fermentation, and then they dry it again afterwards. So it's just interesting to taste as well.
Yeah, it's very, very, very unique.
Yeah,
Very unique. The cinnamon now is still like I have a cinnamon roll here.
yeah, for sure. But on the subject of ferment, because me as a coffee roaster that almost exclusively, well, to be honest, I mean your Icatu now will be the first natural coffee that we are working with. That is, we work with one other, that's Geisha Village in Ethiopia. That's a pretty exceptional farm, and it's a really, really expensive coffee. But apart from that, we don't carry any other natural coffees. The reason for that is because I like clean coffees. Very simple. But then me as a roaster or a green coffee buyer, even though small quantities, I'm a bit worried. I'm thinking 10 years from now, there will be hard to find a farmer that processes coffee the way that I want to. Because I see farmers around the world that process mainly for the Asian market or the Middle East market. that is looking for really expressive fermented coffees, and I don't blame them because there's a lot of money in it, right? But do you think that 10 years from now, a person like me can still go and get wash processed?
I think that's going to
clean natural
change.
coffees?
I think it's going to change back. It's like a wine industry. You have time to time that you have something that's new that people. Then, who likes the fruity coffee? It's not who is in the market for 20 years. It's the new roasters. It's the new people that never tried coffee or use it to have this shitty coffee from supermarket.
Yeah.
When you see that thing is so different, it's so fruit that this is the coffee that I want. In reality, if the guy drink coffee every day, couple of days he gonna change. For me, coffee needs to have the sweetness, cleanness, and the chocolate, the nuttiness, the caramel, and the fruit. I like the fruit in the back, in the aftertaste. If the fruit come up front, it's something wrong. It's too much.
Yeah.
And I believe that the people is starting to, and I'm seeing this often in my place, in my coffee shop. People that drinks the fruity coffee, and it's outstanding. So they drink one cup and I said, can I have the Ikatu or the other coffees that is usually the washed is the one that it's easy. I sell 4 bags of fruity. It is not that fruity that are extremely fruity. 4 to 5 bags a year. But the naturals clean is 70 bags. So even from other producers, I buy coffee from like you do in my coffee shop. We roast and we buy coffee from other regions. And the fruity, we don't buy more than 60, maximum 120 kilos. And and you can't serve that coffee every day.
Yeah, sure.
So you need to serve the coffee 1 week, and after 1 week we spend 2 months or 1 month without, serve again. It's like something new. But this is not the coffee that, if you see it in the shelf, we put the fermented coffee there, and you put 10 bags, and you stay there for 1 week. And the other ones, you sell 10 bags, 15, 20 bags every day for all the other coffees. And the one so we don't roast fruity coffee every day.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, and I mean one of the things with you as well, which really sets you apart as a producer, is that you actually have coffee shops and a roastery, right?
Yes.
Which is very, very rare.
And it's cool.
It's extremely rare. I mean, I'm visiting there in November as well. I mean, it's really cool to be able to go there and taste the coffee that is roasted and brewed by the farmer, right? It gives you a very interesting perspective and an ability to relate to what we do as well, which I think is really important for me as a roaster as well, because then we can speak a common language in terms of quality and taste as well, which I think will improve the coffee overall, right?
And I think that this is the history. I'm 4th generation. And my daughter, even she's not into the farm, she's into the coffee shop and the school. My son-in-law is the one that is starting to go into the farm. I already have 2 nephews, and one is 17. He's now more into coffee. He already did all the barista classes, roasting class, and he's the next one. The other one is already, the rest is roasting, and he's very good, one of the best copper that I know. And I think that this is the difference, the way that my dad always looking for coffee. My dad always to have the clean coffee. We never bought 1 bean of roasted coffee. He always has, even we roasting that round pan, you'll not believe. And the problem is, he needs to train. Every time that some lady does not roast anymore, he needs to train somebody to roast for him. 2 kilos each time, because he wants to, with that particular roast, he doesn't like the dark roast like everybody in Brazil. I think so. I think that we have a lot of people that are doing like that. People that are 3rd, 4th generation in the coffee business. This is the one that are still trying to do something. That's what they learned in the past.
Yeah.
This is not going to change.
Sure.
You have some things that is made the same way for I don't know how many years, like wine, chocolate, and the same. And they keep the same consistent taste and that the people love. Yeah. And the only way that the producer can survive in the coffee business nowadays, needs to be big, produce a massive, so he gains in the amount, or he needs to do quality. So we decide to do quality. And quality doesn't mean the amount of bags that you can produce. You can produce 10,000 bags and have amazing quantity of good lots. It's if you produce 10,000 bags, you need to have more patio. So this is what people don't understand. I have a friend that he was doing a very good job and we are. I'm using his coffee, and one day he called and said, "I'm planting another 100,000 trees." And I said, "And how many patio are you doing?" "No, I don't. I have the dryer machine." I said, "This is not to work. You need patio."
Yeah.
You know, and he was mad, and he ended up that he grew 50%, and the other part he decided to do another patio. To improve the quality. Because another thing that I'm seeing the producers doing, numbers. People think that numbers is very important.
Yeah.
So one day I came to a farm and the guy said, since the first day I have every batch that I dried in this dryer, I have each 30 minutes the temperature in each one. So, oh, nice. How compare the taste of this one that you try this way with this one? They taste the same? I said, what do you mean? And I said, what this number means? It's like everybody has the cropster, but they roast the coffee and they don't cup the coffee. Oh, I have the record here. Yeah, but you don't have the cupping records. Doesn't matter. Numbers doesn't say nothing. I can't taste the numbers, right?
Sure.
I'm not sure that each year will be different. So next year it will be different than this year because the weather is changing, and so the only way that I can really know if the coffee is good, even roasting. No, the humidity coffee gonna change, the temperature of the day is change. So if I don't cup, I don't. And people now they are trying to do something automatically, They find one way and they want to keep that. So like they push the button, and to keep the consistent, my understanding of the roasting, the day that I'm roasting the coffee, the temperature is 10 degrees in Brazil or 15 degrees. It's very cold. Will be totally different the day that I'm roasting is 32 degrees.
Sure.
So I don't have climate control in my roaster. So everything is going to affect. The air that's going inside of the roast is different. So roast is not something that I push the button. It's not a cow. Right? To roast, to production roast, you need to pay attention. You need to roast all day long.
Sure.
So you need to watch the coffee. I don't know what you think about this, but I can't roast without the dryer. If I can't smell, I can't, I have a friend, Isabella, you probably know her, Isabella Raposelli. She's amazing in the coffee too. And she always joke with me because she doesn't agree that you can't. She thinks that when you remove the things, you're going to change. But in my school, what I'm doing, and I'm having I need to try the coffee. I can't expect the crack if I can't smell the coffee. It's old school.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
my Marty Curtis school. So this is my school. Marty, William, this is the guy that roasts Joe Pollock. This is how I learned to roast. And besides my dad, but my dad I roasted that small.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of value in that, and one of the I love Cropster, so I'm a huge believer in recording data, but the challenge that we have now, as you referenced as well, is that people are roasting is almost more of a way of painting these days because people roast based on a curve, right? And that's completely bullshit.
I agree.
And then people need to realize that because it's about what's happening in the roaster. It's about what's happening with the coffee. The line is just showing you a reference curve in terms of a probe reading that the computer does, right? So let's put it like this. The only way to roast consistent is to roast different.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
I think that's a really good way to put it because coffee is changing, environments are changing. And for those of you that are following this kind of perfect rate of rise curve or whatever you call it, if you do that, let's say 6 months in a row with the same coffee, you're going to be extremely inconsistent.
Yep.
In terms of the final results and in terms of the taste of that cup, right?
Even if you have the coffee in a vacuum pack, because the coffee can be consistent, but the environment will be different.
Yeah, exactly.
The air and everything will be
for
different.
sure. And then, I mean, it's again, we have this all the time where people are. I do this when I do consultancy as well. I travel around and then people, but we're super consistent. Just look at my curves. Yeah, but have you tasted your coffee, right? It's the same thing, right?
This is my question.
It's like your coffee doesn't taste consistent. I don't care if your curves look the same unless your coffee is consistent.
In my place now, we have crops there for like 3 months now. I was using one from Marty Curtis, but I'm still waiting for the new one to be released. Actually, when it's released, I'm sending you one for you to try for a couple months. So you try for 6 months free. You're going to have the open cup and the roast master together.
Yeah.
So you can, like the same that you have in Cropster.
Yeah, yeah.
But we are using Cropster, but even before using crops, we are doing the curve. They stole my computer and I could not install. Stole the computer, then I could not install the program again because market is changing. So we start to doing by hand, the curve by hand. But the only way that we are doing is roasting and cupping, Otherwise, how it's different? Is better? No, I don't know. If I don't cup, I don't know. Yeah. No, the color doesn't. We have the Q class to have a very nice test that Marty loves to. It's the thing that he loves the best. Now they change very easy, but I don't know if you know the roaster ID in the cup of the Q. So you have one I can tell you, I roast to one in 3.5 to 4 minutes, one in 9 minutes, another one in 13 minutes, and another one in 30. Color exactly the same. I put them exactly the same color, but they're gonna taste totally different.
Yeah, sure.
And sometimes, it's something. This is the roast thing. The 10 minutes roast is supposed to be the correct one. Sometimes the 13 minutes roast is the correct one, and the 10 will be burned or. Yeah. You always try to do something like that. So, color, it's one of the things that but not only the color.
No, for sure.
So if you don't cap the color, doesn't matter.
It's the same. I mean, when you're drying your coffee, for example. I mean, you have, let's say your aim is to reach 11% moisture, right? Which is kind of a standard. Then, I mean, depending on how you get to those 11%, that's going to be the important part.
Totally
right?
different.
So it's the same with roasting, right? I mean, we use color as well when referencing roast. But I mean, I can get that color in 1,000 different ways.
1,000 different ways.
And then those ways are going to impact how the coffee is tasting, right? So for sure.
So when you're talking about the drying, this is drying, same that roasting. It's the first time that roast you put the heat, and in the drying I have the heat from the sun or from the dryer, right? But the idea is the same. Yeah. Drying and roasting is the same because I don't know if I could say this, but in the end, roasting is drying the coffee after. You are removing the moisture from the coffee, right? Yeah. So it's the process the same. So I'm trying to reproduce the both sides. What I get in the roast, I bring to the patio, and what I have in the patio, I try to bring to the roast too. And it's, as you also know, you have 100 different ways to roast. So you can have 100 different ways to roast with a great quality in all the different ways. It's like driving, you can go to different ways. You can go longer, you can go, so it's like the same. Yeah. Right.
No, which I think is part of that's part of the fun. And our job is to find the best way to end up there. Right?
Yeah, otherwise it will be too easy. If I have like a microwave that I can put the coffee in, that's it. So what's the beauty of that? The beauty is exactly that it's nothing, next year is easy, I'm gonna do this. No. If maybe the temperature next year will be harder or gonna have much more rain. I have, like this year, I was telling you, we had flower last week. We're supposed to finish in November, and I have flower in January. So we still have flowering because the climate change. Yeah. So this is the proof of the
we talked about that before as well, right? And there's, obviously still a debate whether climate change is a thing or not. But as you said as well, come to my farm and they see.
Come to my farm and spend see the history, what we had last year, we had this year and next year, everything changed. Yeah. And I'm really worried. I was telling you earlier that maybe in 5 years I will start needing to put some shade in my region.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's going to too warm and too much sun, right? It's like in 1,200 meters in my place would be equivalent, let's see, 1,400 to 1,600 in Costa Rica, for instance, because the difference. So I'm 19 degrees, they are 12 or 13, so it's 6 different. So if you see the sun, it's. But if they are below 1,400 meters, they must to have a shade ground, right? Sure. It's like in Bahia. Bahia, they are 13 degrees. So it's the elevation, it's 1,400. Between 1,200 and 1,400. It's a unique. I don't know if you try the Bahia coffees, it's also unique. But they need shade ground, partial shade ground. So in Bahia, what they do is they have one line of trees, 5 rows of coffee. Another line of trees, so they have partial shade ground. Sure. If you go a little north, 7 degrees south of the equator in Taquaritinga do Norte, which is in Pernambuco, northeast of Brazil. The oldest coffee, because I'm going to tell the history how the coffee came to Brazil. But they need to have 100% shade ground.
Yeah.
They need to have really 100% shade ground. It's in the forest.
Yeah.
That you have monkeys. The little monkeys coming in. You see inside of the forest, suddenly you see one coffee tree here, another coffee tree there. It's a very unique place too. But if they don't have it, they don't have coffee.
No.
I tried their coffee now when they don't have the shade. Man, it's a piece of shit. This car is terrible.
Yeah.
Same region. It's about 20 kilometers one each other.
Yeah.
Basically the same altitude. The shade ground. It's not the best cup of coffee because the altitude doesn't help too much. But
Sure.
But it's really very good.
It still makes a big difference. Yeah, sure. Let's go back to your farm again and the history. First of all, which is kind of interesting. I mean, from Brazil standards, your farm is tiny.
Yes.
Right. You must be
tiny.
one of the smaller farms.
I have a small. In my place, we have 400 coffee growers. In some, it's they have like about they milk a little bit, and they have 10 bags, 20 bags, 30 bags, 100 bags.
Sure.
My farm, it's. For my region, from my neighbors, I'm a bit smaller.
Okay.
So it's kind of compared with other countries. Like this year, we're going to produce 900 bags of coffee. Next year, we're expecting 1,500, and our plan is go between 3 and 5,000. 1 year 3,000, and maximum 5,000 bags in probably 6 years from now. But it's still small for Brazil.
Yeah.
The only problem is now I planted coffee. Now I start to eating, so it's why I'm already increasing the number of the patio. Doesn't matter if I have coffee, if I have enough space.
Yeah.
So I need to think about this, And,
I think a lot of people are underestimating the difficulty that goes into the logistics, especially of drying, right? That's why, for example, really big mills. I mean, you have a wet mill and then you send your coffee to a dry mill, so that's a slightly different thing, right? But even if let's say you do it in the same location, a very big part of why really large scale operations are not generating quality coffees because it's too much.
Exactly.
And it's time based, right? You have a schedule, so you know that in the afternoon I have 10 more trucks of coffee coming. I need to start processing. So whether this coffee is done or not, it's going off the patio, right?
Exactly.
So it's a very different thing. So the interesting thing with the smaller mills or the smaller farmers is that they can be more flexible with their time. But even then, there's still a pressure to dry in a certain way, right?
So about when I moved to the farm, one day I met a producer. He's produced good coffee. He does not produce extremely good coffee. Sometimes by lucky. And he's a big producer. He's produced nowadays 30,000 bags. And he doesn't care. He's very good producer because he has coffee from 3 years ago. He sells the coffee from 2000. He's selling now the coffee from 2016. Okay. The warehouse. So it's commodities coffee. It's good, but it's commodity. But he taught me one thing that I will never forget. When I moved, he said, we are neighboring one farm, and he said, if you are producing 100 bags, you must harvest in 3 months. If I'm producing 30,000 bags, it's also 3 months. Doesn't matter how big you are.
Sure.
If you produce 100 bags, probably your patio, it's small. So you can harvest in 3 months. If I produce 30,000, I have 10 dryers, 20 dryers, I have big patio, take the same time. So doesn't matter how big is the farm. The process, the farm, it needs to be harvested between, in my case, June until end of August. So I always spend, doesn't matter, like this year we produced 50% of last year. Took the same time.
Yeah.
We start basically around June and finish in August. We start by selecting, by harvest. In May we do a little bit for showing the like Berlin this year. If I need to start in May to have the coffee ready, but it's only a little bit. And it's not the best coffee.
Is it true for your farm? I had this discussion a lot with the farmers we work with, and I tend to almost always prefer the later part of the harvest in relationship to the first one. Is that something you feel as well at the farm?
This is what I believe. This is why I only harvest my Icatu in August.
Yeah.
This is the coffee that I like the best on the farm, so I always harvest this later. And always the first coffee, I'm talking about the natural, is no doubt. So what I do, it's the first, I can't start in August everything. I not have enough time.
Oh, of course.
But what I do in the beginning, that show that I showed you today, that the machine is it was June 28th,
Yeah.
that is washed. So the first coffees needs to be washed. After end of July, August, I liked better the natural. You know why? In my region, in August, I have around 50 to 60% tree dried. So to know my best Icatu, 2001, when I moved to the United States, was the best coffee that I already have. I harvest 100%, 11.5% from the trees. I have
11.5% moisture from the trees.
on the trees. What happened is in 2000, in this year, was 1 year that we didn't have rain until November. So when the rain came, we have one flowering only, and so it was beautiful. We don't have, so I could wait for the coffee tree dried. And the Icatu has a particularity. It doesn't, it's very hard. The pickers hate. No, the machine I need to pass 3 times because the coffee does not go out. So it's another reason that you see that's clean. When you pass the machine, you don't have greens coming.
Sure.
Too hard.
You said something interesting with this coffee as well, if I understand this correctly. This is harvested. Was it harvested during full moon, or is it just in the night?
Full moon.
Yeah.
I always try to do the Icatu in August, the full moon.
Yeah.
And this year was a bloody moon.
Yeah.
The eclipses.
Yeah. And what was just so that everyone here understands the story? What is the story behind the picking in full moon?
I'm not exactly. It's a biodynamic, and came the idea that Graciano Cruz did a harvest during the full moon, and he did in the different times of the day, and he found out that the full moon, the coffee has a little bit more. I don't know if it's changed or not, and I don't know because I always do the same. I try to do the same in a full moon. It was a coincidence that this year we really decide to get that Icatu in that particular day. And some was harvested by machine, and some was harvested by hand pickers, the smaller ones, the new coffee trees.
Yeah.
Some of this coffee is from the because I put them together. I did not separate in the end.
Sure.
So it's same variety. It's the only difference. It's 30 meters difference, the altitude. But we harvest the same. And so now my Icatu will be always. I'm going to harvest 2 coffees this year in this time. Will be my the one the lime that you saw, that the yellow Catuai, and the Icatu will be in the full moon. I can't do everything in that.
No.
I'm going to have some in a full moon in June, July, but in August it's always been the best. I have probably 60% of the tree dried. And in my region, in my farm, the best coffee is the tree dried. If I'm telling you that this year that I had 100%, 11.5 from the trees, was amazing. Was the highest score that we have ever in the coffee. So this year we will be not be able to do the same because we have too much flowers. But
yeah, sure.
But I think that it's easier to do select harvest. The Icatu, when you pass the machine, and this year the Icatu, I'm going to try to do everything at night. During the night it's cold, all right?
Yep.
And the coffee is hard to remove.
Yep.
So the Icatu is already very hard to remove, even if it's the cherries. So if you do during the harvest, the green will be cold, it will be hardest to remove, and it dematures. So you're going to have much more. And this, I think, that was the cleaning the cup. It's being natural. I want to ask you one thing. What do you think about the honey process?
That's actually a really interesting question because I'm just back from Costa Rica, and red honey. I mean, they have different degrees of honey these days, right? Whether it's white honey, red honey, black honey, which is simply just a reference to the amount of pulp they keep on the bean itself. The pitch behind it from a farm perspective is that you can add some of the kind of fruity characters coming from a full natural, but then keep more of the cleanliness from a washed coffee. I think honey is interesting. We actually had our first ever honey processed Ethiopian coffee coming out this season. So they've started with that many years ago, but then this season was when we have a lot of roasteries in Europe working with it. I think in Ethiopia, it's been a huge fail. I think the amount of Quakers we had in our coffees because of this has risen unproportionally. I think there's something in the harvesting there that just doesn't work. So I've been really unhappy with it because it hasn't added anything to the taste experience apart from a lot more Quakers, which just makes the coffee more papery, right? In Costa Rica, however, which is, Costa Rica is far superior processing wise than, for example, Ethiopia. I mean, they do it so well. So you don't have any Quakers in the coffee. And I do believe that it adds some fruity characters to the coffee. Personally, I always prefer a washed coffee. I think one of the interesting things that I took away from the trip now is what they refer to as a white honey or a yellow honey, which is a very, very small amount of pulp. It's about 5 to 10%. So it's almost a washed coffee. And I've cut some of that, and that actually is slightly sweeter than a washed, but as cleanly tasting as a wash. So the coffees that we buy from Costa Rica now for this season from Volcan Azul is going to be what he calls a yellow honey. I think I'm going to call it a yellow washed because I think that's a more appropriate name almost. That I like. But
this was not what they call the pulpit natural.
It's no, similar-ish.
Because my pulpit natural, I don't have more than 20% of
yeah, I think that's kind of. I mean, I talked about this in Costa Rica as well. I mean, the issue with all of these terms is that depending on who you talk with, that's going to be a completely different thing, right? So it's really, really hard. I really prefer to talk percentage of pulp on the bean rather than giving it a name because it's so different. It's so different, right? But I'm coming back to washed coffees always, because they're cleaner. They have a better shelf life and they're more stable. I mean, the cup we're trying now, I mean, the Ikatu is amazing. But again, it's also the only natural processed coffee we're buying at April because it's one of the few natural processed coffees that taste like the cultivar, right? I can taste what you've done with the coffee. I can taste the origin of the coffee, right? I don't taste any bad fermenting notes. If I go to Ethiopia and buy naturals, Geisha Village again they do amazing work, but all the other natural coffees they taste like ferment.
No, I was in Uganda doing a training.
Yeah.
They took me to Uganda to do a training. It was funny because I was stupid to go at that time. I just did a hernia surgery, both sides.
Oh wow.
38 days later I was in Uganda. And I went to a hotel and I have 30 growers waiting me for it. Said, what's the program? And I said, I'm asking you, where's the car? I said, which car? So we need to go to the farm. And he told me, no. He said, man, if I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation here, we can do by Skype. They spent 10,000 rands to send me here. You want me to teach a PowerPoint here in this? No, I'm not going in this room. It was stupid. Going up to Sip Falls was with the hernia hurting me.
Sure.
But we went there and we went to a farm. And I was videoing and she was telling what they do with the coffee. And I was worried about the potato taste in the coffee. And when she was driving, I said, but she has doing a select harvest. We went and a bunch of people, they are dressing like they are going to the mass that Sunday. It's how they dress. I didn't know that. They dress different way that we work in Brazil. Yeah. So they harvest the coffee, cup of fruit to harvest, and she started the pulping by hand, showing us what to do. And I told her, but this coffee is not ripe yet. Yeah. And I said, what do you mean? And I said, this is not completely red. It's you see some lines that is still immature. Yeah. I said, no. After the yellow, they told us that is good. And I said, no, it's not. So this is what they don't understand. That the coffee that is not completely ripened, you're going to have the peanut taste. It's not enough sugar inside of the coffee. It's not ripe yet. It's like you're eating a raw banana or green banana. Or when I meet green banana, it's the Brazilian banana. When it's green, it's very dry and very astringent. But they believe that it works. I came to them and I told them that, I want to talk to you guys about the machine that it's, if you don't have water, you have problem with water. Maybe the semi-washed machine, if you want to remove the mucilate and do a wash it. And they laugh at me. I was in the hotel and they laughed at me. I said, such machine does not exist. When we went to their mill, where they bring the coffee to process, the guy there already has one there for the mucilator, Yeah. So I think that in Africa, and if you saw Ethiopia and you see the regular coffee, it's like in Brazil. Most of the coffee are not good. The coffee could be good, but you see the coffee, you see so much green, so much black, so much. And this is what kind of the Quaker, because the Quaker is nothing else than the coffee that is immature.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't do the select harvest like they do in Colombia, because the cost of my labor is much more expensive than the other place. But I have the way to remove that green somewhere
You're compensating that later on in the dry mill, especially, right?
But the only way to really to think that this coffee is clean, I can't promise this year, but sooner or later, I'm going to the opposite. Everybody wants machines, right? To speed up the thing. I'm going to the opposite. The only way that you can really select don't tell me that the select the color machine does 100%. Doesn't.
Yeah.
Even if it does, like I did this couple times, I need to pass and pass and pass and pass again. But what happened is, to remove one bad bean, I remove a lot of good beans. Yeah. You know, it's air, right? I can't remove only this one. So it's couple before and couple later when you put before and descend so the only way that to really remove everything to have the coffee 100% clean is like they do in Costa Rica. I know that they do a lot. Belt. Yeah. People picking by hand. You can train the women or the men, whatever who's working there, to pick exactly what you want, even the immatures. The immatures, the only way that you can remove the immatures is by the density. But to work with the density, you need to have a small machine. Usually the density machines, they are big. It's for 20, 30 bags. Yeah. So if I need to pass 2 bags, it's almost impossible. Yeah. And you need to pass 1, 2, 3, 4. Sure. So the same coffee, I have, like this Icatu, I had probably 3 lots of Icatu, the different ones. The first pass, the second pass, and the third pass. What I do is first I clean everything. So this is the top, right? The second, I have a lot of good beans, I pass again. And I pass again, and sometimes I pass 3 or 4 times. And you have the coffee close, but otherwise you're going to lose a lot of coffee. If you do by hand, you're going to have 100% good coffee and no bad beans in your bean. I have 4 belts. One, I used it a couple years ago. And it's funny because we have the warehouse, and they were building something there, and the roof came out. Too much vibration, was an old building. And since then, it's in the patio. I think that I showed you in the warehouse. This year, at least one I want to have, at least for this Maicatu. If I can have only Maicatu, in Maicatu, I select in a belt. I go to the warehouse in... did we go to the warehouse? Very clean. Yeah, sure. So that warehouse is different. Yeah. And the guy doesn't care. That guy that worked there, his cousin worked for me for 20 years. If I ask him to pass 100 times, he's going to pass 100 times. He's going to charge me, and he doesn't ask me. And when you go to the co-op, the guy said, no, but if you do this, you're going to spend every time I need to charge you. I'm not asking you. I ask you to have the coffee. And I never had the coffee that we had like this year in that warehouse. But as my dad told me once, nobody can do the work the way that you do. Yeah. You're supposed to do yourself in your place. Yeah. So I'm still using the other warehouse. One of the reasons it's in Brazil, it's a little tricky. You can't let the coffee at the farm. Yeah. So when we mill the coffee, immediately, every day, 5 p.m., we stop at 4, and 5 p.m. the coffee is leaving to town. If you have 10 bags, you can have people coming to steal your coffee. Yeah, sure. So I will need to put this I need to rent a warehouse in town and put in warehouse in town so I can keep the coffee there. But sooner or later we're going to do this. It's the only way that you can improve the quality of your coffee. It's the labor. Nobody can do. Machine can do what your hand do. It's like automatic machine. No automatic machine can roast like you. Yeah, sure. Because it's a process, right? So I think that Brazil is starting to working about coffee. And you know what's fun? 1975 we have the big frost, right? So goat's poop looks like coffee. Yeah. You can sell that shit that time. Because no coffee. We lost 20 million bags of coffee, 27 million bags in 1 year. So can you imagine if you remove 27 million today, how much the price is going to go up? Yeah, so the price went so up in the Brazilian. My dad you saw that farm. That farm is from that was built in 1950 some. That washing station. Yeah. No coffee there, only processing in that farm. And we bought the farm, my father bought to use the exchange with another one because they struck no coffee there. In 5 years, 6 years later that if they bought the farm, we had the frost in Paraná. And every coffee worth a lot of money. In the Brazil, what they stopped to do? Stopped to do quality.
Yeah.
1985, I was in the farm. 1986. No, it was 1990. Illy was buying coffee in Brazil. Was the first one that started buying coffee. And Cerrado was pretty new, was basically 10 years old, and Illy buys 100% of their coffee from Cerrado. In their competition, the top 50 was from Cerrado, were from Cerrado at that time. And usually they buy only natural. With the climate change, they stopped and start to buying the puppet natural. And my father was a copper, and was a good copper. And I tell today that he was scoring the coffee without giving the numbers, because he called strictly soft and he started putting plus. So strictly soft, 5 plus, probably equivalent to a 90-point coffee today, you know. And we were doing the interview in the radio station, and all the producers in the country, in the town. And one guy was very expert. He was working in a big company and was working in this another guy that my father buys and sell coffee. And this guy too, they have the dry mill, you know. And my father said, I had that day a result from Illy. And my father said about the strictly soft coffee, and the guy said, Zinho, you know that Cerrado does not have strictly soft coffee. The reason is after the 75, nobody cares about the coffee. Any coffee was the same, so. And my father, no, I disagree. Yeah, you do have. He said, nobody going to score Cerrado coffee. What about Illy? Not even Illy. And I gave him 2 certificates that I just sold to Illy. I said, could you read this for me? He said, what is it? No, just read this for me. And he doesn't want to read. I said, if you don't read, I'm going to tell you. Illy said that this coffee is strictly soft, like you said. That people think that Brazil only to have the massive production. It's a hard. You know, if you see the guys cupping coffee in Brazil today, they roast the sample in 3 to 4 minutes. It's yes or no. They are not looking for quality. They are looking for defect. Yeah. If it says moldy or something, it's easy when it's lighter than. So if you see the guys the cuppers that come to do the Q class in the roaster ID, they always fail. They got the 3 minutes as the right one because it's what they are used to do. Yeah. So we stopped to evaluate the coffee as coffee. We stopped it's bad or not. If it's okay, so you see a lot of immatures and all the stuff. As we are talking about Ethiopia today, people that felt in 63 graders that calibrate Q, 15 felt. These 15, 5 of the top cuppers in Ethiopia back in the days. They stopped to cupping, and they stopped to learning about their coffees. So, you know, cupping is something that you can't stop. You know, my father was 90, was still doesn't have evidence in the same part, but still, I have the last picture I have with him. He was 92 cupping with me at the academy. And mad because I have some fruity coffee that he said, this is fermented, this is not good.
Keep the cup clean, yeah.
So I think we have a lot of way to go. And I truly believe that this fruity ferment coffee is going to change. You know, because I don't think that everybody's going to like. And ask everybody that is more than 10 years in the coffee how they think about this fruity coffee.
Sure.
Or either they are making money and they start to promoting their coffee because they are making money. Some that are selling to Japan or Asian markets. Or, you know, this year we had a fun. We had an academy and we had one coffee, our coffee, honey. That we handled, that was terrible. I'm not saying the name, but one of the world-known copper came and scored 92 in the coffee. I looked at him and I said, what? And I have another very clean coffee that he scored 85, and I said, do you see the change? No, this is, it's not. he was thinking about who is buying that coffee. And it's not the coffee, at least for me, it's not the coffee for you. It's extremely fermented. I process the coffee. This is what I asked you about the honey. So I had the cup experience, and the black honey was not that good.
Sure.
The only honey that we did good is the one that we did 2 kilos by hand. We got only the cherry. It's a friend of mine did at the academy without. Actually, put the coffee in a little barrel. I think that was for 2 days. Only harvest and put inside. When you open, you have a lot of liquid inside. I don't know what is from the mucilate. And that's the one that was very good, but I can't do that by hand.
No, sure.
So I did like about 200, 300 grams. The academy. And we tried one in my place because the pulper used a lot of water. We did by hand. So we dropped and got without the water. Didn't go well. So it was extremely fruity in the way that I think that's over. So it's something that I think that we're gonna give up. At least the black honey, we don't want to do. Maybe like you said, the yellow honey or yellow washer, right?
I mean, well, whatever you want to call it, right? I think the important thing. I mean, we need a range of coffees, right? In that sense, I'm not against people experimenting with processing. I think it's an important part of innovation, is right. We need to learn, and that's how we learn. We just hope that the cycle of trends come back to cleaner coffees, right? That's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that the clean is the key.
Yes.
The fruit, it's okay if it's clean, but it's over. Fruit is not clean.
Yeah.
No, we want the coffee that you want to drink every day.
I think so, and I mean the clean coffees are those, and we're gonna wrap this up now. But I think for those of you listening to this, make sure to try the coffee. I mean we're gonna have it out at this time as well, and it's a great example of what you actually can get when you have a really clean cup of Brazilian coffees, right? I mean it's amazing floral notes, it's amazing fruity notes as well, and I think most of you, if to try this, you are gonna change your mind on Brazilian coffee if you haven't already done that. But thank you, Bruno. I really appreciated you taking the time to sit down and talk with us. Yeah.
And I'm waiting for you in Brazil. You're going to prepare
Well,
your
I'm
coffee.
going to come, for sure.
At least a micro lot.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
told you 5 days at the farm will be enough to have the coffee processed the way that you need for.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm looking forward to that. From us here at April, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thank you.